With another one of these things. I hope you're well. I hope you've been dealing with the weather all right. It's been fucking mental. Every season I've had this week, it's pissing down now. It was a fucking heat wave this morning. I love it. Dress for the weather. Wear a fucking bikini and take a fucking umbrella. Anyway, on to the questions, starting with a question from Roland Deschain 1. Ginger, what are your thoughts on the apparent fact that Sparks are doing a movie musical with John Woo? Well, as anyone knows me, will probably already predict, I'm very, very excited about Sparks collaborating with anyone. There's been a few Sparks collaborations that haven't worked in the past. I can't wait to see what a collaboration between Sparks and John Woo would be. Is it going to be one of those John Woo movies where there's gangland members shooting 7 shades of shit over each other with Russell Mael doing falsetto over the top? Or is it going to be something completely different? And are Sparks going to be completely different? And who knows? It's going to be brilliant if it comes off. But yeah, there's been a few. Sue Hawk was one that you were going to do a movie with Sue Hawk. That never came off. So yeah, fingers crossed that it's going to work. But yeah, Sparks. I mean, I just, I tell people I was really spoilt as a young'un because of the people that I considered to be my musical heroes, namely Sparks, David Bowie, and Lemmy, all of which kept going right until the last fucking day of their life, all of which dressed for success. Yes, I was very, very fortunate to have my heroes be people that didn't just accept getting old and slowing down and doing all the things that old musicians normally do when they get a bit of money. It seems to be some kind of epidemic where people get a little bit of success and it kills their spirit. They start looking shit and start releasing less music. I'm currently enjoying the new Sparks album, which is, I think, the 27th or 28th album of theirs. But yeah, I got really lucky. But I got to say that Sparks, especially lyrically, I don't think anyone or anything has inspired me as much as Ron Mael, who still writes really funny lyrics, still managed to shoehorn some really clever jokes in there. I love Sparks as much as most of my family, really. I really do. And if anyone feels the same about me, then I'm glad you picked me, because I ain't going to do that either. I'm going to go down fighting and releasing music with every breath that I've got. And you can thank Sparks and Lemmy and David Bowie for that. Next question up is by Steve Pluck, who says, I watched the live link for Lemmy's memorial service while drinking Jack and Cokes. Yes. Please can you tell us about your experience of being there? Was it invitation only? Was there a wake? I don't know if there was a wake. That was the wake. What is a wake? I'm not quite sure what a fucking wake is. Is that not what we were at? I'm not quite sure what a wake is. I went over there because I love Lemmy and because I wanted to go to the funeral, and Wendy Dio, Ronnie James Dio's wife, was arranging it, and she said it was okay to come down, and I was there with a good friend of mine, and we, just being up drinking, listening to Motorhead all night, didn't sleep, of course. You shouldn't get any sleep the day before Lemmy's funeral, surely. That's in keeping of the man's spirit. But the first thing that you saw when you walked through the door was loads and loads of Jack Daniels shots. And obviously this is Los Angeles, where most of the people in there were sober. They're all from the AA brigade. So they're just passing up on just walking past the Jack Daniels desk. And I was standing there with Josh Homme, knocking a few back, and just saying, this is perfect. Lemmy's taking the piss out of sober people on the day of his funeral, which I thought was just great. What's going to piss him off more? Stick a load of drinks there to celebrate, and they can't fucking celebrate. I thought that was hilarious. Sobriety, it's a very serious subject and all the rest of it, and we'll not go into that now. But obviously Lemmy didn't subscribe to that kind of nonsense. And I say nonsense because a lot of the sobriety in Los Angeles with the musicians is nonsense. Because I know some people who never had fucking drink problems anyway, but now they're professionally sober and they network with other sober people. And I've been over there when the fact that I was drinking went against me in being able to network. So yeah, the thing was like a kind of a club where if you enjoyed a beer on a weekend, you weren't invited into that club. The sort of club that Lemmy would have mocked. But the funeral was great, and the only thing that really pissed me off about the funeral was, I remember Lemmy saying when he was alive, he wants the Laurel and Hardy music playing as he's being carried, or his coffin's being carried through the procession, and they didn't play it. They had something sad instead. And I was like, that goes against the man's sense of humour, but he was an Englishman with an English sense of humour, and we were in California, which is a different sense of humour altogether. A different sense of humour. But yeah, aeroplane joke there. It was great. It was weird because there were people there that, I mean, everyone knew him and loved him, but there was people there that were there because the cameras were there. I didn't know there was going to be cameras there. I didn't dress for success, and I was actually bleeding. I just got this tattoo on my chest, and I was bleeding through my shirt, so I'm glad I wasn't anywhere near where the cameras were, although I did get shoved in there on a couple of the cuts. I think I was sitting next to the girl who used to do the tattoos for everyone. Not Dita Von T, she's the burlesque dancer. The other one, the one that was probably going up with one of Motley Crue at the time. And she was really nice, but I think they were zooming in on her and I got in there. But then Dave Grohl got up and it just all went a bit Hollywood. And I know from being a Lemmy fan and watching a lot of Lemmy interviews, he didn't want it to be a sad Hollywood event. Well, not a Hollywood event, obviously, but he didn't want it to be a sad event. He wanted people to celebrate his life. And it was like trying to bring the spirit down, so everyone started getting a bit, maudlin and stuff. Thankfully, the maudlin people were all the sober people, and all the fucking Jack Daniels drinkers were whooping it up and wishing him the best on his further trips and further journeys, because his life was a celebration. Lemmy's whole identity was celebration of the self, of being yourself unapologetically and hardcore yourself, whatever yourself is. Now, I think I love that more about him than anything else. Of the big list of things that I loved about him was that he was all about self-expression, be yourself and be a good one. So yeah, there was a bit that was kind of missing because of the Hollywoodness about it. But it all kind of rectified itself when everybody went on to the rainbow afterwards. Is that maybe it was the wake, the rainbow thing? Because I think all the sober people went home and all of the people that weren't sober went to the wake, and I was hanging out with Ringo Starr's daughter, who was fucking funny. Give me a lift. I went there with my friend who wasn't even invited, and we were just like, yeah, we're just going to just act like we've always been a part of this business. But yeah, we had a great time at the Rainbow. It was just a proper Lemmy style celebration, complete with vomit on the floor and, people crying and fighting, and it was perfect. It was great. But yeah, I was just glad I was there. I'm glad I got invited. I was talking to Wendy Dio before, and I had give Lemmy a copy of my book, and I said, would you read it and do a foreword? And I was talking to Wendy about that, and she was saying it was the last thing he was reading before he died, and she was saying, you're just too busy for this. And he apparently said, yes, but it's Ginger, I'm going to read it. And he died while reading my book. Don't know what you can ask of the universe more than that. And that's why the book didn't have a foreword. I just figured Lemmy's not going to do it. Doesn't really matter who else would be in line to do it. So yeah, I've just been thinking about Lemmy recently, actually, and I realise that I miss him pretty much every day. There's a point of the day where you just go, I wish Lemmy was here. Marky Smith was here, just to get their opinion. I wish Steve Albini was here to get their opinion on things. And we haven't got them. Still got a lot of people who you don't want to hear the opinions of, but that's why you should really just love the people that you love and love the absolute living shit out of them while they're here. People die all the time. Just lost another friend this week. Just let people know how you feel about them. It really is the only thing that fucking possibly matters. Oh, forgot to do me fucking Black Sands of Time. I'm going to put them on just because I like to watch them while I'm doing my little thing. And I've got two little fellas that's sitting on top of the Black Sands of Time, and it's this little devil fella here with a penis, and it's this thing. I don't even see that. It's a shot of The Exorcist where Merrin turns up at the house, and that was a gift from producer Phil and his lovely wife Lynn. And that sits on top of my black sands of time, where it currently finds itself now. Owen asks, hi there. Hi there, Owen. Of the music contract, oh God, this is going to be one, isn't it? Of the music contracts you signed, have you ever read any of them? If so, are there any sections you paid particular attention to? Oh, Owen, no, I didn't. I don't think you should trust musicians who read through contracts. You give it to your lawyer and they read it. I just thought that who wants to be a fucking rock star who fucking sits and reads through 100-page contracts? But I was alerted by our lawyer of a couple of clauses in the contract that meant it doesn't matter what was in it or not, you were screwed. If you signed this kind of invite into the world of music business, then you were screwed. They were fucking you some way or other. And there was two clauses that made me laugh, that I realised what the game was. One of them was that they owned the music for your life and the life of your kids. And I think it said something about, anyway, there was the other one was they own the music for Earth and any other planets that might be discovered and inhabited within the duration of this contract. And that's no bullshit. There was a clause in the contract that said they own your music on Mars. Fucking hell. I would never, ever, and nor should anyone ever, sign a contract with anyone for anything, whether it's a fucking music business contract or a wedding agreement or whatever the fuck. Don't sign contracts. Because they're fucking like anything. You can be in a relationship for fucking years. You know, Nelson Mandela was in fucking jail for in a solitary confinement in a stone room for fucking how many years? And he came out, got married. It lasted 6 months. You know, you can be in a relationship. Now, I know producer Phil and his lovely wife Lynn are in a very successful marriage, and I wish that was not exceptional to the cause. But it is exceptional because the suicide rates, fucking hell, is a Freudian slip. The divorce rates indicate that it doesn't work. And that's not to say relationships don't work. It's to say that fucking marriage doesn't work. You put a contract in there and all of a sudden the whole fucking game changes. Exactly the same with music. Yeah, did I read any of the contracts? Of course not. Of course not. And yeah, from that point, knowing that there was clauses in there that were so ridiculous that, you know, what you're going to do? Well, I want our lawyer to fight for it's Earth only. We're only going to sign the contract for Earth, you know, especially where I was in my life at that time. My concerns just weren't about, you know, politics and commerce. I just wanted to know where the fucking party was. Where's the girls at? And yeah, never signed any contracts since. Hi, Ginger. Loving the podcast, says Andrea Smith. Not totally caught up yet as I was a late joiner. Just wondering if as a musician you think you listen to music differently than someone like me who's just a fan of music. As you know, all the technicalities of making an album. It's a very good one, Andrea. And I'll tell you what, if it's a bad album, yeah, it does spoil it. Because I can see what's wrong with it. I can see where they've used audio on the vocals or they've quantized all the drums so they're perfectly in time. And then they've shifted everything in the box to go perfectly into. I can tell when harmonies have been tuned just because of the sound that it comes off as slivers of sound instead of washes of sound. And the washes of sound only happen when harmonies do a thing called oscillating, when they vibrate against each other. And that's the tingly bit, that sounds nice. And if you don't know music, I guess you don't hear that. You just go, oh, I get it or I don't get it. But with me, I don't get it because it's got that and that going on. But I'm also, like you, Andrea, a fan of music. And when I listen to music that I like, I'm completely and totally exactly like you. I just fall in love, hook, line, sinker. Everything in it is magic. I don't question, I don't criticize. I can't critique any single part of it if it's working. And my thing is, I like bands or artists who are being unapologetically themselves. Whether it's fucking noise. Well, I mean, I was really enjoying Wattane's album, you know, the Ecstasy and Agony of Wattane, I think it's called. And then the next thing I was listening to was, what do you call them? Anyway, a dance record. But it didn't really matter what the style of music was. They were both unapologetically being themselves, and it didn't matter what was going on in the studio, how they were getting those sounds. It just, the honesty came out. And I like to think that I get pulled in by the honesty of music, especially lyrics. If I hear someone and they're just clocking in and clocking out with the lyrics, they lost me, you know. But that's not to say that I don't enjoy corny lyrics or cheesy lyrics. If that's what the person wants to be, then, you know, it's not easy being cheesy. But if someone's trying to be edgy and there's no real edge there, it's off. I can't be bothered with all that fucking nonsense. And Charles, our drummer's trying to get me into a load of new kind of metalcore bands or whatever they are. And it starts great. It starts like... They start by sounding like Dream Theater, and then the singer from Slipknot comes in. And I'm like... I just can't get it. And he says, yeah, but it's passion, it's emotion. I'm like, yeah, but that one note vocal. But if I hear that one note vocal and it's a fucking violent, aggressive band, that just kills me. So yeah, time and a place. You know, a band like Nails. The guy from Nails was singing with Dream Theater or Rush. It's not going to really work too much. So I like the honesty in music. And when I do connect with music and it connects with me, I'm just a fanboy. I've got a fucking box of popcorn there and I'm just going, oh, just do it to me over and over again. So yeah, I think that's a thing that I've always got with my music as I'm doing it as a musician, but with the point of view of a fan. So if I got too self-indulgent, for example, and just thought, I'm not going to have drums, I'm going to have someone, you know, patting someone's arse. Actually, I've done that. But you know what I mean? If I just started messing around with the formula because it pleased me and I wasn't a fan, and I didn't really care about other people's music, you'd probably have loads and loads of albums of mine. You probably wouldn't be listening to my music now. But I like to think if anyone gets into my music, they're going to go back and listen to it and just hear honesty, you know, trying to get what it is inside of me out. And hopefully it resonates. But, you know, I was talking about a band on the last podcast called Parts and Labour. And the thing that got me with them, you know, I listen to a lot of fucking bands and it just, you know, bounces off like fucking sponge bullets. But when I hear something that just has got just an authenticity, an integrity of intention, it gets me. It gets me. And it doesn't matter what style of music. It really doesn't matter if it's Merzbow or it's fucking ABBA. Really doesn't bother me. Yeah, I'm an absolute fanboy when it comes to listening to music I like.